Wonderful. So welcome, everyone.
Oh,
Hi, Pat.
hello. Oh,
Hello, Melinda.
Yes. So welcome, everyone. Give yourselves a hand. We are still here. We're still breathing. We're still on the earth. We're still participating. We're still here. We're still doing it. We are here, and we are here together. And what a blessing that is. Can I invite everyone to breathe? Really want to invite you to breathe and allow yourself to kind of like, right, land on this amazing home that we are standing for and loving in. So I want to share, this is our first. This is the first time we're doing this. And so you are a part of birthing us into existence. So thank you. I want to let you know this will not be perfect. One, because it is our first. And so it will not be perfect. And so in that, I am inviting the community here to really practice frustration and anger and love and joy and just allow yourself to practice all of that as we are exploring and playing and learning and growing together today. So Nathan, do you want to talk a little bit about tech?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Nathan. I'm the host of the call, and I'll be kind of running the tech stuff. A few notes is that I guess when we want to try to keep everyone who's on the call muted when they're not speaking, just to avoid background noise. And then also there's going to be a few moments when they'll be accepting, questions and comments and stuff, in which case the way we kind of want to work that is that if you click on your participants button down on your bottom bar, that should bring up a list of the participants, and there should also be a bunch of options of buttons you can hit, including like yes, no, go slower, go faster, and then there should also be a button to hit for raise hand. And so if you have a question or a comment or anything, you can click that and I'll create a queue, and then we'll kind of call on people based on that. And then the final thing, I think, is that we are also recording this right now, just in the potential of potentially making, these sessions in the future into some kind of podcast or video or something. So if you do not want to be recorded, please let me know, and I can not do that. So yeah, that is, I think, everything on that front.
Wonderful, thank you. Nathan, could you also make me co-host?
Yeah, I'll try.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So because I'm nervous, I'm going to read some of this. And again, I want to invite everybody to breathe so that I can breathe too. Yes. Join me in the breathing. This is an invitation. It's not a demand. It's not a demand. It's an invitation. This is an invitation to be in awe. To be in awe and to devote this particular time, this moment, to wonder. This is a call to healers. We are so desperately in need of healers. This is a call to healers, to welcome you, welcome the healers, welcome you, right? to welcome the healers, to honor the healers, to support the healers that exists within each of us. This is a call for healers. My belief is that deep down you can hear the truth in what I'm pointing at in this moment. We are in need of healers, and we need to celebrate them and honor them and hold them up and be inspired by them and interrupt the patterns of competing against each other. This is a call to love. It's an invitation. It is not a demand. My hope and my prayer is you do recognize that you are a miracle. The fact that you can breathe, throw a ball, taste cupcakes, dance, smell a baby's diapers, enjoy music, all of these are miraculous. They are marvels. We can even remember the faces of loved ones when they have been absent for years. And the more science discovers about these faculties, the more we appreciate how amazing, how amazing, how amazing, how amazing we really are. In the midst of these miracles, surrounded by these miracles, we have become profoundly distracted. We have become profoundly distracted. We neglect and misplace the sense of wonder about life and all that is present. We are thirsty in the abundance of water. To achieve wholeness, we need a new health-oriented worldview. We hope that we can work together, all of us, that we can work together to frame a scientifically valid, spiritually creative, and just, environmentally profound path towards cooperation. Can I invite you to breathe? Can I invite you to really allow yourself to feel how your body breathes? So we're going to do a moment of just dropping down. We're going to begin with a moment of centering stillness, and then we will share our stories. Inviting you into a moment of centering stillness. Thank you. So when I was a little girl, I had imagination. I had an amazingly beautiful, vivid imagination. I loved playing. And I was blessed because I lived in Upper Bucks County, serene, beautiful trees, lakes, streams, quarries. I got to play as a child. I got to love the earth. I got to witness water spiders and how they danced on the earth. Well, actually on the water of the earth, but still dancing. And I was in awe. I was also raised in upper white America. Lots of racism. And as a little brown girl, I got to experience resistance, blockage, fear. And as a child, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that because all I knew was I wanted to love. And that put me on a path. And that path brought me to becoming a massage therapist. And that path of becoming a massage therapist got me to recognize that when I was touching people, when I was massaging people's bodies, I was actually touching miracles. And at some point, and I'm going to share with you the language that I am as a Quaker, I recognized that I was actually touching God. And I was humbled. And often I felt alone in my quest in understanding the violence and yet the magnificence. And my quest eventually brought me to Susan. And I met her on the dance floor at a workshop. Susanna Macy, yes. We were dancing together and it was amazing. And we connected. And we are still walking together. However, I needed science. There was a part of me that was like, I need to understand this thing about sperm and eggs and how we got here. And it's an amazing esoteric metaphysical conversation, and I'm not going to go into it right now, but eventually it brought me to Swarthmore. And I opened these huge doors, and I mean some huge, heavy doors. And I found this man, Scott Gilbert, at a copy machine. And I fell in love with his capacity to tell stories that I now call love stories. And so I am grateful to share with you what Susan, Scott, and I have been uncovering for the last 4 years together. It took us 4 years to get here, and we are here. So Susan? You're muted, dear one.
Sorry, I thought Scott was next.
Oh.
Yeah, my academic background is in psychology, mathematics, and environmental studies. And I was interested in psychology because what makes people behave the way they do in sometimes absurd, self-sabotaging, even cruel ways, and what allows them to ignore reality. And mathematics was fascinating to me because I could see with patterns that you could understand trends and predict. And the structure of mathematics allowed me to understand magnitude and scale, which helped mature me. And the environment is a word that's used many ways. It sometimes refers to the weather. It also refers to the physical, material nature that is the foundation of all life support. And it also refers to kind of the conceptual, cultural milieu of like the political environment or the economic environment. But as a child, I was more happy in nature because nature accepted me for who I am more than my family or my educators did. My first career was a career in social justice. I was teaching what was called disadvantaged students. I don't know why that term fell out of current use, but they were disadvantaged by a rigged system, by an education system that didn't really support them. And I was teaching them, sharing with them my love for mathematics by teaching 2nd through 5th grade elementary students algebra. It helped them get on in the path of life, but I also felt a calling. So that was 29 years in about 17 different major city school districts. Then my heart was breaking, and it breaks when I think about a future on planet Earth where the whales have been killed off and the elephants have died and the oceans have been fished and the forests are gone. And when the climate doesn't allow us to grow crops enough, and there's famine and war and, excuse me, and disease, and where children, suffer. It's not their job or their role. So in that, I believe that the human race has lost our values. And we've bought into a paradigm where we value the economy and accumulating money is the goal. And I believe that it is possible for us to return to valuing life and where health becomes the primary goal. And our personal health depends on our planetary health. And that when we remove the toxicants in our lives, both the cultural stresses and the physical chemicals and radiation and things that are happening to pollute our bodies and our earth, that nature knows how to heal, that nature will return when you remove the toxicants. And I believe that for my personal health and for the planet. My master's degree research was looking into stages of consciousness development. Just like Piaget talks about cognitive development, there are stages of emotional development, there are stages of moral development, and there are stages of consciousness development. But we have a society that is dedicated to ensuring that most adults never pass the adolescent stage of conventional conformity. And there are more inclusive stages of consciousness. And there are factors that prevent us from moving to a higher stage. And there are elements that can motivate somebody to move to a higher stage of consciousness. And those were things that I was very interested in knowing more about. So I don't think humanity has fully matured as a human species, and it's time we do that. The times are calling us to grow up, to put health first, both personal and planetary, and to heal the fabric of life. Thank you.
Okay. I was one of those boys who knew the names of all the salamanders and butterflies in the area rather than all the baseball players or football players. I loved being outside. I loved frogs and butterflies. And I had the good fortune to come of age during the Sputnik time where people were giving money for people to go into science. And I ended up being an embryologist. And embryologists study change. Embryologists kind of don't like permanent things. We like things that always are in flux, always changing. Tadpoles becoming frogs, caterpillars becoming butterflies and moths. And an embryologist is an incredible privilege. I mean, to be an embryologist is an incredible privilege because we are expecting in our lives to see wonder every day. Wonder is not something we go to on vacations. Wonder is not something that's an exception. When we go into the laboratory, we expect to be astounded, and it never fails. To see a sea urchin egg get fertilized, yeah, we do this in intro bio class. It is amazing to see the heartbeat starting on a 3-day-old chick embryo. Amazing. So we're, as embryologists, still experiencing wonder. And I was again, I had the good fortune to be at a school that allowed me to be both a biology major and a religion major. And I came to a working hypothesis for me that wonder is kind of the elemental, it's the primal experience between the mind and the planet. But wonder has a short half-life. It decays, and it decays into two very powerful things, awe and curiosity. And this is in the way we talk about wonder. You could talk about it, I wonder, curiosity, or you could talk about wonder, awe. And from awe, we get religion and reverence. From curiosity, we get science, philosophy. And so wonder is the parent of both, or the grandparent of both science and religion. And in embryology, they're never very far apart. And so here O comes into the development, the biology department office at Swarthmore and asks who teaches embryology. And I'm right there. And we start talking. And here is a person who loves sperm and egg, who could talk about sperm and egg with the passion that I love to talk about sperm and egg. So we start this decade-long talk about how we get here. I got the privilege at Swarthmore to do research in embryology. And there were two areas that I focused on. One is the embryology of the turtle. How does the turtle get its shell? I was actually paid to study that. I mean, this is a privilege. I also got to look at a new area of science, which is how do we come into being with the help of other species? That we don't do it alone. It's not just from the fertilized egg that we develop, but we get signals from the environment saying, hey, of all the possibilities you can do, it's best to do this one for this environment. We get to become one with the microbes that come into our gut and help form our bodies. So I started looking at how does the environment actually give us cues, tell us how to make our body. And so I'm involved in how are bodies made? That's the question that I ask. And it's something that Susan and I have been passionately discussing.
So with that, what's going to happen is we're going to watch 7 minutes. Nathan, if you want to get ready to cue that up, please. We're going to watch 7 minutes together of a part of our origin story. Some of it is mythology and some of it is accurate. And Scott's going to support us in exploring what part of this is myth and what part of it is accurate. However, while you're watching these 7 minutes, I invite you to watch it from the viewpoint that this was your journey, that this was a part of your autobiography, and that it's a part of your biography that we have been taught to forget. And what I'm standing for is that we begin to really understand both the spirituality, the science, and the environment as to what we learned in the womb about relationship, communication, and sharing resources, we need to bring out here onto the earth. Nathan?
Can you hear it? Okay.
Remember, watch it as it was your experience. Nathan. So whether we're in myth or whether we are in fact, we are miracles. What would the world look like if all of our children, if every single child was supported in recognizing their journey before they landed on Earth? What if? Scott?
Okay. I have lots to say about that movie. Not all of it good. There's much good in that movie, but there's much which I think is cow dung. And cow dung is a technical term. It means the conventional wisdom of the dominant group. It was a term coined by C.H. Waddington, an embryologist, to identify those things which are myths and not supported by data. And let me just mention some of the things I found disturbing about the movie. First, it was a movie about a hero, the sperm. Okay? It was fertilization from the male point of view. It was fertilization with all that heroic music, with all that stirring heavenly choir, talking about the male performance. This was a movie that stressed male performance. And it made that male performance and female passivity a holy event. And it's so much better. It's so much more interesting in that the sperm, when it is ejaculated from the male, is immature. It's not a cell that can fertilize an egg. In its journey towards the ovary, in its journey, the cells of the oviduct actually bind the sperm. They do not let the sperm progress. They bind the sperm because the sperm is immature. And the cells of the oviduct interact with the cell membrane of the sperm. And it changes the cell membrane of the sperm, and it gives the sperm new capacities. And this is what the actual term is, capacitation. The sperm gets a new cell membrane in its interaction with the oviduct cells. And this new sperm cell membrane now can sense chemicals which are being secreted by the egg. The egg and its surrounding cells in the oviduct are secreting chemicals that tell the sperm, first of all, where to go, where to find the egg. And secondly, it tells the sperm, it's now or never. You are to use every piece of energy in your mitochondria to get to where we're telling you to go. And so the sperm starts swimming as they've never had to swim before. And they know where to go now because they've been capacitated. And once they get to the egg, they digest the proteins that surround the egg, and they enter the egg, and they don't bore through it. In that movie, you saw the sperm boring through the egg. No, it's much more interesting. The sperm and the egg membranes interact. In the humans, the sperm spoons with the egg. It doesn't penetrate the egg. It doesn't drill through the egg. It spoons. And then the egg cell membranes wrap themselves around the sperm membrane, around the sperm, and the membranes fuse. It's an embrace where the two become one. Not a violent act, rather an act of embracing. And then the sperm goes into the egg and now has a problem because the egg is not mature. The egg cell and the sperm cell are both immature. The egg hasn't even completed its meiotic divisions yet. It doesn't have a nucleus ready for the sperm. In the movie, the nucleus is already there, ready to fuse with the sperm cell nucleus. No, the sperm has to wait. It's made this incredible journey, and the egg's not ready yet. So just as the sperm was activated by the egg and the female reproductive tract, now the sperm tells the egg, complete your cell divisions. And it does. And now there's a nucleus waiting for the sperm, for the sperm nucleus, and they get together. But you got to remember, the egg is humongous. How is the sperm nucleus and the egg nucleus going to find each other? Well, what happens is the sperm nucleus starts using egg proteins and makes a net. And that net kind of catches the egg nucleus. And then the egg nucleus and the sperm nucleus travel along that net of proteins, find each other, and fuse. Now I want to show, and Nathan, if you could show the sea star video. This is not in humans. This is with starfish. And it's a picture of the moment of fertilization in starfish. And if we could have that video. Okay, here we are. Now I just want to get you set here. What you see, or what you will see is, okay, here is on the left-hand side is a starfish egg. You can see this dot on top. That's the sperm. And on the right-hand side, you see, here's the sperm, which has been colored over here. And here's the egg. The egg is humongous. And what you'll see in the lower left-hand corner, that's going to show calcium. That's going to show the activation of the egg. And so if you could play the video first time, watch the sperm on the right-hand side and watch what the egg does. Okay, play the video, please. Here's the sperm coming towards the egg. Look at what the egg does. The egg is going to grab that sperm. Bloop. And there it goes. Okay. Okay, and now it's going to become part of the egg. The sperm is now part of the egg. Let's play that again. Okay, there's the sperm. It's coming in. And the egg now goes out and grabs the sperm, brings it in, and now heals. Now what I want you to do is look at the video on the lower left. That is calcium being released from the egg, because originally there's calcium throughout the egg, but very dispersed. When the sperm enters the egg, something amazing happens. And now play that again and watch the lower left-hand side. Boom! Calcium goes throughout the egg. And as the calcium, from the point of sperm entry, when the sperm enters the egg, it releases enzymes that tell the egg's calcium to be released from the storage granules in the egg. And so starting from the point of sperm entry, within seconds, calcium goes across the egg, and what it does is it activates the egg. It starts telling the egg, replicate your DNA, make your proteins, start development, start getting ready to divide in two. So the egg is not passive. What you have in fertilization is the egg is not passive, the sperm is not passive. They are both active participants. They are both immature cells that interact with each other to become mature. That fertilization is not merely the competition for this egg. Fertilization is the mutual interactions between egg and sperm so that they both become mature cells that can interact and create the embryo. I think that this movie doesn't show these incredible interactions. The movie that we saw first doesn't show these interactions going on. They just showed the egg as passive. And then they did something else which upset me, is they showed the embryo as if it were independent from the mother. It showed the embryo as if it were an independent entity floating in space. It looked like a spaceman, you know, amongst the stars. No, the embryo is completely enveloped by an amnion. It's completely fed by the mother, and the mother and the embryo together make a placenta, which was not shown in the video. And the placenta is one of the most amazing organs of the body because the placenta is made by two organisms. Part of it comes from the mother, part of it comes from the embryo. Between the two, the placenta makes a common organ which will feed the embryo. Really amazing. And so it's this interaction which I think wasn't shown in the movie. The movie showed what was kind of special, what was holy, was the male performance. But it's
So
the
Scott?
female performance as well.
So Nathan, can you take down the screen for a moment? Thank you. Appreciate that. So I want to invite everyone to breathe. That's a lot of information. And I'm imagining, you know, as you're being invited to look at your autobiography, looking at and reclaiming the part of your story that I'm imagining you don't even think about. And yet, if it wasn't for that part of your story, you wouldn't be here. Can I invite you to breathe? So I want to identify we're over time already.
All right.
Yes. So I'm inviting you to breathe because we got really excited and passionate about what it is we wanted to bring to the community. And so we're going to open it up now for questions and answers. And after we do questions and questions and answering, let's just do 5 minutes of that. We're then going to have you go into small breakout rooms so that you can have some conversations with each other in smaller groups. And we will give you some questions to respond to. But right now we're going to open it up to questions and answers. Or ahas or epiphanies or whatever you want to do with this. The other part of the invitation is that if you are specifically wanting to ask one of us, say that. And if you're opening the question up to anybody to respond, please say that as well. And you can also share whatever it is that's on your heart and mind.
So if you'd like to ask a question, you can put in, I think it's in the participant section, you can choose to raise your hand and Nathan will select you.
Or even raise your hand this way too if you think we can see you.
Yeah, I saw a hand first from Dawn.
So Dawn, unmute yourself.
When I got to see this video in advance and was charmed by it. Not the starfish. I could have. I didn't see the starfish, and that added a great deal to my perception. As I was listening to Scott, it occurred to me that you're pointing out the biases that we carry as practically as a species, and we're growing beyond it. We're evolving beyond those perceptions. We're getting better. But I found that in what you were saying as well, because I could only identify with what I saw, and what I saw was it took 1 million males and a single female. And 1 million males, most of whom failed.
All of them. Yep.
And in terms of the issue of penetration, I didn't perceive it that way. I perceived it as a union. And I wonder if we, in our attempt, are striving to not carry the biases, particularly the gender biases, that we were, especially Scott and I in that generation of Sputnik, that we carry, that were built into us, even by wonderful parents.
Mm-hmm.
That where this all began, the miracle aspect, to me, is where I begin and where I end. I've written a book of poetry, and the title is "What is Not a Miracle?"
Mm-hmm.
What is not a miracle? I'll end there because others want to talk. I could go on and on.
Yeah, I want to speak. I also want to speak too that the sperm, it's interesting that we do think of the sperm as male because it comes from a male apparent body. However, the sperm in and of itself are both the X chromosome and the Y chromosome. And so it's at that level that, you know, we're experimenting with this conversation, and I'm looking forward to our transgender brothers and sisters showing up and participating in this dialogue as well, so that we can learn from our transgender community, brothers and sisters, their experience of this story. But again, I want to say that the sperm is really X and Y, which has the potential of being. Another question, we'll do one more question.
Well, if I can just mention something, in developmental biology, there's something which I call the Matthew principle, which are many are called, few are chosen, and that you see in the sperm with the egg, you see in neurons, because we make many more neurons than actually connect to other neurons, and in the muscle cells, we make huge amounts of muscle cells. The only ones that survive are those that get between the tendons. So the notion that many are called, few are chosen, is one of the ways that development occurs. Also, you mentioned poetry, Don, and the poet who I love in many ways, but who really got fertilization right, was Philadelphia's own Walter Whitman. And he says, urge, urge, and urge, always the procreant urge of the world. Out of the dimness, opposite equals advance, always substance, always sex, always a knit of identity, always distinction, always a breed of life. And I think that out of the dimness, opposite equals advance. I mean, I think he really kind of had a preconception of fertilization being opposite equals. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Which calls us to diversity, which calls us to embrace the other,
Yeah.
because without the other, we are not whole.
Right.
And so we have an opportunity to interrupt some of this. I think because of time, I think we actually need to move into the next section where you guys get to go off into your rooms and be with each other. Susan, can you direct us through that? Would you, I know you're not on the list to do that, but I'd like to hear your voice.
Thank you. So we're going to break you into rooms of 3, and you'll have 3 minutes each to share. And we're asking you to share. I think Nathan will put on the screen shortly the questions that we're asking you to interact with. And the first thing, of course, is to say your name. And then how does either what you read before or what you've heard so far today impact you? What feelings and thoughts do you have about fertilization as you understand it's not significantly just the hero story? Nathan, do you have those questions to put up?
And let me also say this too, when you go into the room, you're going to need a timekeeper, because these are conversations where people are going to be able to talk for hours and hours and hours, mostly because we haven't had an opportunity often to speak at this level. So you're going to need a timekeeper, and each person is given 3 minutes to share their observations. Nathan?
And I see that Nathan has posted the questions in the chat room.
Yeah, I did. So I don't know if I share my screen, it will be available to all of the breakout rooms. So I put all of the questions in the chat, but I'll try to also share my screen during the breakout rooms. And so I guess I will do that now.
So when you'll get an invitation, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, Nathan. I'm excited.
Since there are 31 participants, I'll do, what, 10 rooms? There. Here we go. Make sure it's all good. Open all rooms.
So you have an invitation, and so you join your breakout room.
Let me try to share my screen with the questions. Shit. Share screen. Whatever. Okay. Parker, do you have a breakout room?
Hello.
Hi again. I'm going to mute myself since we're in the big room.
Okay.
Configuration.
It would seem that not everyone has come back.
Hi, Ellen. Wonderful to see you, Ellen.
Hello, oh, wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see all the beautiful, beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, this is the community I have been drumming for. I've been drumming.
I was just telling our group how this is the realization of work that you've been doing for so long. This is the beginning. It's like the cell and the sperm and the egg came together, and now the division is visible.
Mhm.
And may it continue to grow.
So can I invite everyone to breathe?
Thank you.
Invite you to breathe. And so would anyone like to share what that experience was like for them? Yes, we're being invited to mute ourselves if we are not speaking. Thank you, Jim.
I don't see any hands, either in the chat or on video.
I just want to mention that there's a question in the chat. How does reincarnation fit into this process? Seems interesting. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I would like to speak to that very briefly. I personally don't believe in reincarnation per se, but what I do believe in is cellular information. And cellular information for me is that every single ancestor that got me here lives in my body. And because they live in their body, I have access to their stories. And in the process of having access to their stories, if I find myself in a frequency and a vibration close enough to their experience, I will remember a story. So that's my story. It's a story. Who knows what's real? And thank you for asking. Scott?
Again, reincarnation really doesn't occur in the scientific literature, but one of the things which I find fascinating is that the germ cells of our body, the sperm and the egg, used to reside in the testes and ovaries of reptiles, of amphibians, of fish, and invertebrates, that we are a continuation of the germline, of the sperms and the egg that used to reside all the way back to the first primordial animals, and that every other animal shares this relationship with us. That we all came from a very limited supply of animals, but the mosquito that we hate, the flies, the midges, the gall mice, the salamanders, the butterflies, they all share with us the fact that their germline were in the critters that our germline was in. And so it might not be reincarnation, but we do have this continuity with all the other animals on the planet, which I think is quite remarkable.
I think it's also important to name that we are welcoming all imaginings, all thoughts. It's true that science may not speak into it, but in the spiritual realm, we embrace and celebrate all imaginings.
There's another question in the comment section.
Yeah, I saw hands from Hollister, from L, and then there was another question in the chat from Diana.
Hollister?
Hi, all. And hi, I'm so glad to see Susan Curry.
I know we
I haven't seen you
since
since
Earth Charter Day.
Earth Charter Days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So two things. One, I just wanted to say that's the first time I've ever done a breakout group in a Zoom meeting. And it was so delightful to meet two people I'd never met before and to answer those questions together. We had we came from three very different directions. But the other thing I wanted to say was that I would love to have an offline conversation with the person who asked about reincarnation. That was, I'm looking back, Mara Fallon, because I have gotten very involved in the study of Rudolf Steiner and his understanding of the evolution of human consciousness, and reincarnation is a big part of that. And so I'd love to talk to you offline.
So this is
And
wonderful.
I'm a trained biologist. Totally believe in it.
And so this is what we're also hoping for, that you will find each other and continue being in conversation and dialogue with each other. Elle, would you like to go next, please?
I want to be brief just because I also want to preserve the flow of the conversation. But so briefly on the note of reincarnation, I don't come from a spiritual practice that really talks about reincarnation in an in-depth way, or I don't have experience with that. But what that question brought up for me are my experiences with my own like ancestral line, which I think is something that O brought up. And I do have some ideas that come from a Soto Zen practice. And one thing that really struck me about the video, and I talked about this in my small group too, my great breakout group, is was the emphasis on the idea, this competition around being the one sperm that makes it to the egg, or being the one biological entity that makes it the longest, something like that. And just thinking about that, thinking about an individual as a single manifestation of a greater collective at a given moment in time and a given place. You can think about that in a really broad way, or you can think about it in terms of the bodies and blood that have come before you and are now manifested in you, and how that really can change a perception of the world. I also think about if like thinking about it from the story of my parents and ancestors who came from Korea here, there's a certain, I think, sadness my dad has with the idea that you know, the previous ancestors made sacrifices so that you could be the one to make it. This is actually, like, I think a kind of, it's a difficult narrative for me, an immigrant child, to carry. And I think there are a lot of limitations to it, and there's a shadow side to it. But I think it's also different. It goes against sometimes an American cultural idea that you only matter if you're the one who makes it. And I've found that really salient recently in, I think there's been a lot of motion in my life happening around social justice work, new people who are interested in anti-racism work, who are newly introduced to it, people who have been doing it for a very long time. And sometimes people put a sense of urgency on themselves because now that they're aware of the issue, they want to be the person, the generation, the moment, the year that it's fixed. And I think many people who have been part of this work for a long time have also an understanding that we are a manifestation of a collective that has been working for generations and generations on these issues. And sometimes that can help to disperse feelings of urgency that can lead to actions that could be, that are, you know, a little reactive or harmful. So those are where my thoughts were at. So thank you.
Thank you, Elle. Can I invite everyone to breathe? Really allow yourself to be in your body. We're coming together with dreams and visions and possibilities and wisdom and knowledge, reclaiming each other, reclaiming ourselves. Gary?
As you know, I think about death sometimes, and one of the things I say to myself seriously and to amuse myself is that I come from a long line of corpses.
Yes.
But having participated in this conversation, I realize I could also say I come from a long line of sperm and egg, and I come from a long line of animals. So we can keep changing and tinkering with that sentence depending on how it moves us at any moment.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that we also land into, we come from a long line of breathers. We breathe. And so I really want to invite us to continue to explore and experiment with, we come from a long line of breathers.
Oh, if I can say something, I hope that in our third session that we will queer this notion of coming from a long line and say we come from long lines, plural, because the cells in our body are not only those that come from the fertilized egg, but an equal number of cells come from the outside, come from microbes, which are very important in making our bodies, that we literally become with the other, that we're not so much apart from the environment as we thought, and we have actually several lineages feeding into us.
Thank you, Scott.
A preview of week 3.
So I saw 3 more hands, one from David, one from Ellen, and then one from Patricia.
David?
Yeah, I have this vision in my head of having seen an earlier video long ago, I guess, of an egg surrounded by many sperm that were all writhing their tails furiously with their foreparts in connection with the egg membrane. And the egg at some point accepts one of them. And I think part of the myth might be, if I could offer a corollary, that that egg is the one which is the Darwinian, champion, the survival of the fittest, that kind of thing. And I am wondering if any of you could comment on whether, in fact, this is much more nuanced and the egg and the sperm are doing a dance so that the sperm, which unites with the egg, has something going into it besides this kind of natural selection, physical survival of the fittest stuff. And if that's true, as I hope it is, then what does that say about our entire path to, as I hope, growing as a species past a domination paradigm into a cooperative paradigm?
Scott's really the scientist on that one, but my belief is that there's a spot on the egg that she's tender. And a sperm that's listening really carefully to the signals and the vibrations and frequencies finds itself near that spot where she takes someone in. No science there.
Well, as sperm physiology gets better and better, we might find that there are, if not a spot, certain spots which are much more amenable for sperm entry than others. But I think what had just been said is that you may have survival of the most cooperative, the survival of the multitasking, the survival of the sweet spot where the sperm has to be capacitated, but then not only bind to the oviduct, but leave the oviduct cell. And so it's a combination of being able to do many things. It's a very competent sperm that's being chosen, but it's not only competent for being fast and active, it's being competent for being able to listen to the signals. So you might have an interesting, sperm. What's being selected for is being able to respond, being responsive to the signals. And also there's luck involved. And scientists don't like to talk about luck, but I think that, yeah, there's luck in being there at the right time, at the right place, not going up the wrong tube. Yeah, there's luck. But there's also, I think, competence in the sperm that's selected is one that can respond to the signals that the egg is giving.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's multitasking.
And so, yes, I too, this isn't a place where Scott, Susan, and I can wrestle with each other. We've been having this conversation for about 4 years now. So Scott would speak of it as luck, and I would kind of like go, I don't know. And there's a part of me from the spiritual context, I would breathe through that and notice the feelings that would come up for me around pointing at that level. And I would go, well, yes, because it's a yes and. Yes, I can imagine that there's some luck. The and that I would stand with is what he was also pointing at, which is this fine-tuned sensitivity. It's what I speak of as sensuality. And we have lost our sensuality with all the violence and the dismemberment and teaching fear of each other and racism and classism and sexism. Like, we've lost our sensuality. And I'm hoping that a part of this conversation is that we begin to work together to reclaim our liquidity. We were liquid. We were more liquid than we were bone. And so what do we do to create a world where it's okay for us to reclaim our yes, right? Yes, to reclaim our sensualness. Can I invite you to breathe? So what I'm aware of is we are at close to the, yes, breathe. Thank you, Jim. So we have about 6 minutes to go, and we have about a half an hour left to speak. So thank you. Thank you for being engaged with this conversation. It is our intention to continue. We are inviting you to come back. We are also inviting you to bring friends if you were engaged in this conversation. Please make sure that you have your name in the chat so that we know that you were here. So that I make sure that we get back to you. The email that we're asking you to work with, Nathan, if you could put the email in the chat, please, is,
Yeah.
Thank you, is bodyearthsoul@gmail.com. So that's where all the conversations will be happening. At some point, I'm imagining we will create a Google Doc so that everybody can be in conversation with each other and gather resources so that we can stay in connection. We
Does
have,
anyone know how I go from private chat to the regular chat?
Nathan, can you help him with that?
Yeah, so if you look at the chat, there's a little thing that says to, and then it says
Very
whoever
bottom.
the person is. If you click
Yeah.
on that, it brings up a menu of people you
Okay.
can select, or at the
Thank you
top it
so
says everyone.
much. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And it's our intention this recording will be posted, but I'm not sure when or soon or where. So we'll let you know.
Ellen?
I just wanted to bring this. I was in a meeting just now with Philadelphia Yearly Meeting where there were two messages, one messy one, but very deeply led from me about what we're addressing with terms of racial justice and the pandemic. And that elicited from a friend that I've known for a long time who's very deeply grounded in her understandings. And when I asked her about it later, she said she didn't know this was going to come out of her. But what came out of her was the insight that what we're looking at in our battle around race is like an autoimmune disease of all of our beings together in this. And that something about what we're learning here and the healing potential can shift that, and to understand it as interconnectedness. This is everyone's disease, that we can find a way, because I work on an autoimmune kind of disease. It's my healing journey. We can do this.
And in the word disease is dis-ease. And so we have created a culture that is rooted in violence. We don't make things easy for each other. We make things ridiculously hard for each other. And collectively, we can interrupt that. Can I invite you to breathe? And so what we're going to do in closing, again, I invite you to enter your body, whatever that means for you. I invite you to do 3 full deep breaths. At your own pace. And if you could say one word, open up your mics and say one word that you are experiencing from this conversation. You can also please put it in the chat, 1 or 2 words, so that we have access as to what your experience was today.
Stimulation.
Community.
Embrace.
Love. That's mine, love.
Curiosity accentuated.
Oneness.
Story.
Wonder.
Grateful.
Gratitude.
And so in closing, I want you to look around and see all of who are here and recognize miracles. Recognize the miracle that you are looking at. Yes. The miracles. Yes. And my hope is that as you move through the day, the week, the month, the year, you remember to breathe, because so many of us can't. That you remember to breathe, and what a miracle that is. And that if anything has touched you, or obviously it has, whatever has touched you, I should say, that you share it with the world, that you bring it forward, because we need not only healers, we need lovers. We need lovers. And so with that, Scott, you want to say something? Susan?
Just grateful for everyone that showed up here and contributed, and hoping to see you again the next time, which will be August 1st.
Put it on your calendars. Scott?
I'll just leave it with what
See
you
link?
healers and lovers.
Can't hear you, Scott. You want to say it again, please?
I'll just want to leave it as you said it. We need healers and lovers.
Mhm.
Couldn't say it better.
Namaste, family. Blessings. You were the first. I'm just going to say it. You were the first for the show. Yay! Woo!
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being lovers.
Goodbye, my loves.
Thank you. You did it.
Yay!
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love your suffrage background. Thank you all for this chance to be parts of one another.